Hey everyone, it looks like we're hitting the top of the hour now. However, we are going to give it a few more minutes just for everybody to hop in and get settled. I know for those of you at the university, some of you may have been moving around with some coursework or things like that. Um, and then we also have some other potential outside sources coming in. So I want to go ahead and allow a little bit of a buffer for that. In the meantime, with your environment, if you haven't gotten that all installed, I would advise to take this time to do so. Know that the first hour of today is just going to be lecture, contradicting the hands-on. So, so the first hour is going to be lecture, and then today we'll be going through some system hacking. So we'll be looking at various things, and then today we'll finish out with that today, and then tomorrow we're going to be more pivoting into some more basic web attacks, and then we'll finish off tomorrow with a scenario that you would actually see in a pen test. So, and if you have any questions or anything, feel free to message me before we get started. So again, we'll wait till about 4:05. We'll get going at 4:05. what? Oh, you can add them. Goodness.
Hey everyone. Seems like some people are having some trouble with installing the software. So I'm just gonna walk everyone quickly through. So there are instructions, but for you, so basically here, first for VirtualBox, this is a URL, and you can just go download. Let me know if my screen is too small. And just choose whichever one that your device is operating on, whichever OS that you guys are operating on. And then once you have it downloaded, you can just go back here and follow the rest of the instruction. For Kali, this is a URL for you to download the image. Make sure that you're downloading for VirtualBox image. So whichever image you want to download, just go ahead and click on it. But I suggest 64 bits for most of cases. Again, once this is downloaded, go back here and choose either one of those instructions that works for your OS. And then Metasploitable. Just hit this download button. This one is a little heavy. It might take a while. And then again, once it's downloaded, you can just finish following the instruction. It's very fast. It should be 3 minutes if your device have enough memory. So before you do this, try to free up your trash can or anything that might slow it down. And we are here to answer your question if you need help. The URL to this website is also in the chat box.
I'm going to jump in really quick. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to make sure, so you do not have to allocate necessarily the amount of space that you want per box. You could always dynamically allocate the box itself to where it will adjust its your storage space accordingly. The basic default settings that all the boxes go through should be more than enough on 99% of machines.
So what David is talking about is here. Let me show you. For example, okay, I'm gonna mute this. So, no, Kali. Oops. Hold on. So this is what David was talking about for dynamically allocate your box. So when you import it or create a virtual box. Oh, this one doesn't have it. Okay. Let's see if other instructions have. So here, this is what David was saying. So when you import your machine, there are several things. Can you, whoever is keeping your mic on, can you please turn it off? Thank you. So after you choose these settings, then create the virtual hard disk, and then there should be a part for you to choose your memory. Hold on. Let me go back here. Yes. Okay. So, oops. Okay, this is the size that you can drag it however you prefer. And then after this part is done, then
Yes. Were you following me? Sorry, I was looking in the chat. Multitasking is not my forte today.
okay. So I believe for this one it didn't show that part, which is very interesting. But anyways, if you see a box that it says create a dynamic memory, and it should be the other options as well, fixed size or dynamic, then choose the dynamic. Then it will help you automatically allocate the right amount for your VirtualBox.
And essentially, too, if you can't, you can just use the default settings and then delete the host after you're done. When you delete the host, though, make sure that that all that stuff goes into your garbage can or your recycling bin, whatever it is, on your computer. And so when you do that, it's going to store that in there. So it's still going to take up space. So you got to actually recycle it or take it out of your recycle bin. If you have multiple drives too, you can have the file path of where stuff gets stored on a different drive so that it doesn't take up the space on one drive. So various options. But for this, the default, if you have the space, I mean, you can use the default settings, and then if you need less space, yeah, you can dynamically allocate it. And then if you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, so to speak, and you can't figure or can't get it to work, you can still follow along. I mean, because we're virtual, we only are able to extend help as so much, right? So excuse me. So if you can, the default settings are fine. There's no reason to overthink it. You can just populate the images into VirtualBox and you'll be good to go.
Yep. Yes.
And if you are having trouble, like I said, you'll have the next hour to do that because we're not going to do any hands-on stuff, so to speak, just yet. But we are going to do some hack. Don't worry there. And then, Larry, if your PC is actually fighting you back, you might want to put on some boxing gloves. So we're almost 15 past the hour, and we only got 2 hours to do this, so we're ready to kick it.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, Kim, I'm gonna take
Okay.
screen
Go
from.
ahead. Yeah.
Also, Kim is also the official moderator for this, so if you have any questions.
Gotcha.
So, let me move some things over really quick so that I can see everything. So welcome everyone to this 2-day workshop where over the next 2 days, we're going to be going over some basic pen testing concepts. We're going to do a lot of talk, a lot of banter, and most importantly, we're going to do a lot of hands-on stuff and apply all the stuff that we're going to learn. We're actually going to apply it to the lab that we built, right? For those of you that were able to do it, you should have a Kali Linux image. We're going to be using that as our attacker image. And then you should have the Metasploitable image, which is the vulnerable image. If you can't have those two machines, if they're not working together just yet, don't worry. I just need you to make sure that you have them stood up, so to speak. That's where you have them actually up and powered on. And we'll worry about making sure they can talk to each other here in a little bit. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, welcome everyone. we're going to be these are going to be some of the concepts we're going to be talking about. So we're going to be talking about pen testing, offensive security, and just cybersecurity in general. So you're going to hear some terms that you may not be familiar with. For those of you that are familiar with them, if someone asks, please feel free to help out each other. We do have 2 days to do all this. So this is a really good way for everyone to network, get to know each other, right? Because we're all here to learn and do some hacking, right? Again, and then banter is welcomed. Please keep it, at a PG level. Since we are doing this virtually, you do have a chat box to kind of like talk, make jokes if you want to, but please, don't make it offensive. Refrain from swearing and pointing fingers, so to speak. These are some shout outs that we'll do individually. But CityU, Kim, myself, and yourself, and you guys, right? So a special shout out to City University of Seattle for allowing us to use their platform. We're using Teams with them. So for many of you, you're part of the university. And then there's a few of you from the outside. And so again, thank you for taking the time out of your schedules to be here. But I just wanted to give a special shout out to the university for allowing us to use Teams and their platform to present this. For those of you from outside the organization, these are just a couple bullet points good to know about CityU is that they have multiple programs in computer science and cybersecurity. If you decide to go and apply and get enrolled in one of their programs, there's a good chance you might have me as a professor. I teach various cybersecurity courses at the university, and then some of you here today have had me as a professor. Next, I want to give out a special thanks to Kim Nguyen. She is the president of the CityU Tech Club, and she is a TA at the City University of Seattle. She is a very good researcher and a very good programmer. Her and her team displayed a project not too long ago where they actually were basically hacking drones. So if any of you are interested in talking to her about how to create programs to do cool things or just, hack all the things, please feel free to reach out to her at her email here. Kim, do you have anything you want to say?
Thank you so much for the shout out. I'm happy that everybody's here inside and outside of CDU. And I just want to use this time to also thank my ambassadors for also jumping in and helping as well to make this workshop happen. So Spencer, Apiwat, Clark, David, if you guys are there, just turn on your camera, smile so people know who you are. Some of the instructions are created by these ambassadors as well. So thanks everyone for being a great team.
Thanks to you. Thanks, David. These guys are awesome too. You has helped me out with so many things. He's also one of my best students. All of you are my best. I mean, not saying outside of all the students in here, but he's very engaging. Always reaching out to me. He's been the team lead on all his projects. He's a really good guy. Really motivated. And then David is an all-around awesome guy that's always willing to help. As you guys can see in the chat, like he's helping out all you guys. So feel free to ping these guys if you have any questions, especially about the university. And if you have any questions during the workshop. Okay, next slide.
I did have a real quick question, sorry.
Who's that?
This is Josh. So I got the Metasploitable, and then it's a VMDK. How do I put that into VirtualBox, or is that not another image?
You have to install it. Can somebody help him so that I don't get too off? Otherwise, we'll have to.
Yep, appreciate it. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all good. Yeah, just in the chat, somebody should be able to help you out. All right. And then there is myself. I am the person with hair, not the one with feathers. My name is John Helmus. I have a few different I have a lot of various certifications. I put some up here that pertain to the coursework that I'm going to be teaching. over the course of the next 2 days. I have the OSCP, which is the Offensive Security Certified Professional certification, as well as the CompTIA Pen Test Plus certification, and all 3 levels of Certified Ethical Hacker. To the right of this, these are a couple, well, not a couple, these are a few of the various different things I've done throughout my career. Some of the more interesting things that I've done recently is I've gotten more into being a researcher for AWS, not researching for AWS, but looking and researching AWS and infrastructure as a service. I'm also currently writing a book for a big publisher, as well as a DCS and PhD student. And a fun fact about me is that I'm also a farmer. I actually have a farm out here in Washington where I raise goats and alpacas, chickens, pigs, ducks, and all sorts of stuff. So it's a fun time, always busy. And then I want to thank you guys, right? Special shout out to everybody who took the time to come out here, or in here rather, and just kind of see what this is all about. Kind of get your hands on the keyboard a little bit, maintaining that curiosity and that drive to like figure out how things work in a different perspective, right? Because the pen testing isn't the typical way of how we look at cybersecurity, right? It's the fun looking side, but it's not the typical side. So, special shout out. So, the course that we're going to be going over the next 2 days, right? It's beginner friendly. We're not going to be doing any crazy exploits. We're not going to be doing buffer overflows. We're not going to be writing code or anything like that. This is just a simple baseline introductory into pen testing, right? We're going to be looking at doing scanning for vulnerabilities, looking at various scanning tools. We're going to be looking at ways of how we can gather open source intelligence stuff to actually use that to create attack paths. And then we're going to start going more into the weeds. We're actually going to start attacking easy services. We call those low-hanging fruit. It's very vulnerable services that are open to everything. And then we're going to start doing a little bit of web hacking. Right? We're going to do some injection and some cross-site scripting and some remote code execution. And then, and like I said, to finish it up, for the last hour tomorrow, we're going to actually have a scenario where a scenario that simulates what a client would give to you if you're a pen tester, what they're going to give to you and how you would execute that. So we'll get the scenario plan, and then we'll create the attack path, and then we'll execute it by actually attacking the target. So very, very beginner friendly. I'm big on interaction. So speak up in the chat. I would say don't, because there's so many people here, don't hot mic it, but do, if you have a question, send it in the chat to one of the ambassadors or the TAs or just to anyone. There are no dumb questions, right? So, and that's the next point, is while it is non-formal, this is a very open area, an open workshop, please refrain from any kind of vulgar language. We don't need any of that. I have zero tolerance for that, and if anything like that occurs, it'll be taken into account. And then again, also zero tolerance for any negative comments towards the staff, the audience, so such as yourselves, and amongst anyone. So we're all here to learn. We're all here to have fun, and there's no dumb questions. There's just questions to be answered. So. And I need to put this out there, an advisory. All the techniques and lessons that you're going to learn throughout today and tomorrow, please do not go forth and use them for malicious purposes. Some of the techniques that we're going to learn are basic, fundamental steps that cyber criminals use, and they use these techniques as part of their attack path to actually perform malicious activity. So, with that being said, please do not use anything learned in this class for anything other than using it for educational purposes, for research purposes, or if you have, and this is a key word, if you have written permission to do so. So again, only if it's for research in a controlled environment, or if you have consent. And consent should follow for everything. So, if you have any other questions about that, please let me know. So what are the prerequisites for this? Well, you just gotta have some basic IT fundamentals, right? I would advise to have some coffee or at least some kind of caffeinated beverage or whatever gets your mind going, and then also to have a creative mindset, because again, we're going to be looking at cybersecurity in a different kind of perspective. Course materials, for those of you that are just hopping in, we talked about it. You can look in the chat. You do need to have VirtualBox. You can get that off of straight from Oracle, right? From Oracle. You need to get a Kali Linux image, which you can get from Offensive Security. And then you also need the Metasploitable vulnerable image. Because the Metasploitable image is going to be the image that we are going to be targeting. So in the target audience, students and just IT professionals that are interested in learning some pen testing, right? So, again, why we're doing basics, right? And the learning objectives, just getting a basic understanding of pen testing, right? We're going to be doing that through, hands-on practice and so forth, right? And then the other thing is have fun. This isn't we're not testing you on anything. We're not here to challenge you or anything, right? We're just here to have a good time and to learn a couple things while we're at it. So here is the agenda for the next couple days. So we're going to talk about pen testing, look at a couple roadmap items, do our hands-on learning stuff. We're going to do that today and tomorrow. And then tomorrow we're going to finish up. We'll conclude everything up. And then we'll do some Q&A for any of those of you who have questions. All right, so what is pen testing? Pen testing, or penetration testing, which is also known commonly as pen testing, pen test, ethical hacking, things like that, right? Is an authorized, right? That's the key word, is an authorized simulated cyber attack on a computer system performed and to evaluate the security of the system. So basically what we're trying to do is we are evaluating through a full path of attack on how we can exploit a vulnerability. For those of you that have worked in IT, or looked at vulnerabilities on a computer, you see the vulnerabilities, right? And you have the things indexed with them. So you'll have something that says, this can be exploited by A, B, and C, right? And it says that it has a severity of this, so on and so forth, right? And you see all these words, and it tells you what could possibly happen. A pen test takes it a step further and says, okay, this is how you can exploit it. This is also how an outside attacker could exploit it, right? We're evaluating the vulnerabilities on a system by actually going through and attacking them. A lot of times with pen testing, you're going to hear that it's hacking. It's just hacking. It's hacking. It's a lot more than hacking. It's a very big business model and a business process now. And as it says here, right, it says penetration testing is more than just hacking things, right? In fact, pen testing is a lot more research and writing than actual hacking. That's very, very true. Before you attack anything, you have to do a lot of information gathering on it. Whether that be by looking at the target and looking at services or applications on it, looking at code repositories, things like that. And you do a lot of research. You gather small pieces of information from the target, and then you go back and you go and Google everything about it, right? And and figure out as much as you can about the target before you even attack it. You also a lot of times will have to write out an attack path on how you're going to attack that, right? And that's a good way of documenting things, because that way when you attack it, you can say, okay, I was able to do A, B, and C, but then I got stumped and I couldn't keep going, right? And then you can write up another attack path. So it's a lot of it is writing and research and more writing. If I had to give a good estimate, I would say that The hands-on part is maybe consisted of 20% of it, maybe. So, yeah, and that's coming from someone, you know, who pen tests for a living. You do a lot of hands-on stuff, but there's a lot of other stuff that happens before, during, and after. So, I gave an example. It says, imagine you're scrolling around on Medium. Medium is a blog website, looking for an article that has to do with X. X is just a variable, right? X can equal whatever you want, but X will define the scope of what you are looking for, right? So think about that in the pen test. You have a target of X. Once you find X, you read about it and possibly find out more stuff about X, right? Think of that as lateral movements. Lateral movements is where we shift back and forth during a pen test or in an environment. So imagine you have to write out a comprehensive report that details every step that you made before, during, and after looking at that article and looking at other articles that have to do with that article. And then you writing things about that article. All right? That report helps illustrate why and what of your research, while also displaying how to search better and go around and everything, right? That's pen testing. That is pen testing. That is where you look at something, right? You are given a target. You're given a web application, and you have to know as much about that web application as you possibly can before you even just decide to start attacking it. Again, and we have consent, right? This is a pen. We would have an agreement where it says we're allowed to pen test, we're allowed to attack, and we have to learn as much as we can. We write all this stuff down, and then we write it all down. We take notes, and then we use those notes to write a more formal rendition of them later. And then we take all those notes, and then we start applying it to a scenario, right? We say, okay, well, we're going to attack here, and then we'll be able to attack here, and here, and here, and here, right? So you write all that down, and then you do it. And then you start taking screenshots of everything that you're doing, right? Or pictures, and you start writing down everything that you do, and you have to. It's a very technical process that you, as the pen tester, have to then turn around and be able to illustrate it in a non-technical manner. I'll answer that in just a second. Morgan asked a good question. And so when you take all this stuff, right? You take what you did before, all your research, and you take pictures and notes, right? Technical and non-technical. Like you might write a command down, or you might say, oh, I tried this, but it didn't work, right? Or I tried this and it did work, and I was able to do this and this and this, right? So you write down everything that you're doing, technical-wise and non-technical-wise. You take screenshots of stuff, and then you finish up, right? Say it took 2 days, and you finally finish up. Okay, cool. I have all my notes that I took before. I have all the notes that I took during. All right, now that I'm finished, now I have to think, how can I combine all this stuff and create a story? More so, how can I create a story that illustrates the impact of what I did and the impact that what I found has on the business? And how do I write all this technical jargon and all these like scrappy notes that I took down? Because you're not going to write really comprehensive notes while you're doing a pen test because you don't have enough time. And you have to take all this stuff that you wrote down and you have to say, I have to write this into a story. And I have to write all this technical jargon into a story that someone can read and a non-technical person can read, right? And then then you basically funnel all of that and you create a pen test report, right? In a pen test report, it highlights what you did, how you did it. If you want to write a good report, you typically have a section that we call it like a manual assessment or the exploit part of the assessment, where the pen tester will actually basically give a story, a technical story of how they did it. And we'll use that using screenshots. For those of you that have like read write-ups and walkthroughs for hacking challenges, it's a lot like that, where you give a story of how you did what you did, right? And then you write findings that are associated with that story. And those findings say, hey, I found this exploit, and I was able to exploit it. And here's the risk that it has towards your organization. Here's the impact that if something were to happen, this is the impact that this exploit will have on your company. Here's the feasibility of exploiting it, right? And anything there between you, and then you also need to give references, right? You need to reference, what you're using based off of that, because you don't want to just tell people, oh, well, you need to do this because you need to do it, right? You need to have a reference. You're also, when you get to a certain point, especially once you become like a senior pen tester or a principal security engineer, you're evaluated based off of your experience and your knowledge. So references are still good to have, but they don't weigh as heavy as just you being there. So before we get into the next portion really quick, Morgan asked a question. GVR asked a good question. So Morgan says, share a style of writing used to write reports and document your research. That's a great question, right? Because we all, and I'm going to give a blanket statement and then a more direct statement. The blanket statement is whatever writing style works best for you, use that for when you're documenting, because the documents are for you. And you're going to be able, people, they call it chicken scratch, right? Where you just write stuff on a pad really quick, or if you're in class and you just take quick little notes of focal points of class and keywords. Same thing during a pen test. And how you keep those notes is up to you, whatever way works best for you. Some people like to keep it in a cloud drive like Google Drive or something, and some people like to just store it in a Word document, right? Make sure though that whatever you do is efficient for you, and the way how you write will be effective for the client, right? And what I mean by that is that your writing is effective in the sense of where it has a return on investment for your client. Because if you keep your client happy, they'll keep you happy because they'll keep you retained. And then for writing style, so share a style of writing, the best way to do it is, one, look at other people's pen test reports. You can find pen test reports on like GitHub, and there's a couple different ones out there on the internet. You can find those. The other best way to write it is to think about how, if you were reading it, if you were the CEO of a company and you're reading someone who hacked your company, you paid them to hack you, think about what you would want to see, right? You want to see, okay, well, what did they do? You want to see that manual pen test portion. You want to see the story. Okay, what are some of the techniques they used? List out a table of techniques that are used. Okay, well, I want to know what's the most critical ones. In the findings, you're going to list have a table of findings. They're going to be listed from critical to informational. The critical ones are the ones that need to be fixed right now. Like if somebody, they're easy to exploit and they have a huge impact, right? Think about it like default credentials on a public web server, and you just are able to get in, and boom, you got the keys of the kingdom. That's very dangerous. That would be something critical. Or informational is something like, oh, I found a web server version, and it's not even old, and I found a web server version on a info page for your website. That would be something that's informational. So, and for a lot of you, especially those for you that are in school, you already write papers a lot. So you already have an upper hand. One of the best ways to become good at report writing is to write a lot. And I think that in being in school, you're forced to write a lot. And so it helps you develop your own style of writing, because when you're doing a pen test, you don't have to be so formal or academic. You just have to be professional, right? But you get to have some creativity. So because you're so used to writing in a certain scheme, you're able to do it in a more creative, professional manner. And then the other question is pen testing all about reporting the information vulnerabilities that may lead to exploitation, or actually exploiting it and then patching it? It depends. So you will report the vulnerabilities that you find, and some of them you will exploit, some of you won't, right? Some of them you may find and they're not extremely exploitable, or you don't have the time, right? You might find an exploit or a vulnerability that it might take a little bit of time to exploit it, and you just don't have that time because you're busy exploiting a bunch of other things, or the pen test is just not long enough. And that happens a lot. But you as a pen tester are also there for your best judgment, and you you're essentially, you are paid to make that assumption. Just make sure that when you make that assumption, if you document it and you report it, that you have documentation to back it up, right? You have references, rather that be from peer-reviewed articles talking about the exploit, or rather that show illustrations of how that vulnerability has been exploited in other areas. So, and then may lead to, or actually exploiting and then patching it. And then patching it is part of the organization. You as a pen tester are not responsible for patching at all. It's the company. And typically you'll follow up. If you're doing external pen testing, then you will be, so like say you have your own company and you're pen testing a client, you'll follow up with them typically about a half a year later to just check in, do a health check with them, maybe even do another pen test, just to see if they fixed everything. So, which leads me to the next portion. Reasons why we pen test, right? This is one of the biggest reasons. Because there's standards, there's governance, there's policies in place. A lot of different things, right? That say we have to do this. We have to do this because it's the law, basically, right? You have to do this because if you don't do this, we can't be assured that you're keeping your company safe. So there's lots of sanctions in place that make you do this. And guess what happens? If you don't do it, you're not able to operate those systems. What happens if you can't operate those systems? Well, then you can't generate revenue. And if you can't generate revenue, well, your company's not gonna live too long, right? So we have to pen test now for compliance. And there's various different reasons of why we have to pen test for compliance. We're not really going to worry about that, but just know that it's becoming more regulated, and it's becoming more of like technical law, basically, so to speak. And for those of you that, you know, from the outside looking into into the industry and into this field, it's going to expand. Okay, and I've done a lot of research on this, and this is based to, in the next 7 years, expand to like I think it's between like $5 and $7 billion industry, which means a lot of positions are going to open up. So rather you want to make a lot of money, or you want to have you want to have job security, you want to do something really fun, are all three. This is a very, very good career to get into. And I'm sorry, I get a dry throat. Take a swig of my water. So these are just some roadmap things, right? One of the biggest questions I get asked, right, is that people ask, John, how do I become a pen tester? Like, what's the ABC way of going to it? Well, there's not really an ABC way of how to become a pen tester, if I'm being perfectly honest. I see people become pen testers straight out of college, and then you have people like me, where I was an engineer in the Navy, and I worked on some technical systems, but mainly worked on mechanical systems, and made my way into here. I see a lot of people who transition out of law enforcement and get into pen testing. I see a lot of programmers go from being programmers to pen testing. A lot of tech support individuals go from that to being a pen tester. So it's a very big, broad way of how to get into it, because pen testing isn't all about your skill set. Pen testing is also about what's your knowledge in other things, because you have to, every week you're going to be doing something different, right? You might be testing a web application, you know, week after week after week after week, but the web application is going to be different, and it's going to have a different back-end technology, right? And you're going to be experiencing different things all the time, and having a different perspective, rather it be from law enforcement, or being a naval engineer, or even working on a help desk, or even I've worked with people who were Subway sandwich artists before. So it's all about having that creative mindset and thinking outside the box. That's the biggest thing. One of the other more interesting things is that a lot of the people that I've worked with over my career have been breakdancers. Oddly enough, I've worked with a lot of people that were breakdancers. So, another big question that I get asked a lot is, John, what certifications do I need? And I go, well, hold on. Let's look at this. Because there's a lot of different certifications in this field. And I'm going to speak this up for the people louder in the back. You don't need a certification to become a pen tester, but it does help. Right? And some jobs do require it, but not all jobs. Is it good to have a cert? 100%. Do some jobs require a cert? Absolutely. To do compliance-based pen testing, you at least have to have CEH, because it is a regulated cert that you have to get to do any kind of compliance-based pen testing. For those of you that have worked in the DoD, you know what I'm talking about. You have to get a Security Plus to touch any kind of government computer, right? So, if you look, there is a lot of stuff going on this screen, right? A lot of stuff. And I couldn't break it down to a point to where we just focused on offensive operations. So we have the whole thing. And it's good to know, because even when you're a pen tester, it's good to get certs in other fields. You don't have to go all the way in the offensive operations. There's one or two in here that I was looking at the other day that I have that don't fit in the offensive security track. However, so in this track, Security Plus, it's that one down there in purple. That's the key point to get. I recommend everyone gets Security Plus, whether you're a student or not, or you're trying to become a pen tester or not, because it's going to teach you the basic fundamentals of security and how it relates to information systems. And no matter what you do in technology, you're going to be interacting with people and a computer, or multiple computers. And that certification is going to teach you all the basics of what you need to know in regards to security with information systems. Now, staying in the offensive track, if you look at the certs, they're in red. All the ones that pertain to offensive stuff is in red. CEH is another big cert. It's pretty expensive, but it's a good cert to get. And it's a cert that will open up doors for you if you want to try to become a pen tester, right? Pentest Plus by CompTIA is actually, it's in this chart. It has a novice cert. It's not a novice cert. It's an intermediate cert. It's a good cert to get, and it's cheap. I think it's like $300. You get some material and everything for it. You probably spend about $500 altogether. Another good cert, if you look up where it says programming and scripting, you'll see EJPT. That's a really good cert to get. It's cheap. It's about $400 for the cert voucher, and you get 4 cert vouchers. The coursework, it's a hands-on exam, 100% hands-on. You get labs, you get a bunch of cool stuff to mess around with. It's a really fun exam. I highly, highly recommend it. Very cheap as well. And then going up, there's a lot of other certs that you'll see on this list. Some of them are, they're all good. The ones that I can speak to, though, we'll go ahead and go to the next slide, because it talks about the ones that I recommend, just based on like the impact they'll have on your career, the cost, and just overall the benefit of the cert, right? So we have Security Plus, Certified Ethical Hacker, written. There's a written and a practical and a master portion of this stuff. Just get the written one. It's going to teach you the basics of security and penetration testing. There's the Junior Penetration Tester. That's the EJPT. I'll put that in the chat notes later. It's with eLearn Security. If anyone does have it or knows of it, please feel free to put it into the chat notes, so those who haven't heard of it can access it. And then you have Certified Ethical Hacker Practical. That's a really good exam to take, because it's going to take basically the first 3 of everything that you learn, and it's going to put it into a new, different practical perspective. It's an intermediate level cert. But it also is it's part of the EC Council governing body, which means it holds a lot of weight if you want to become a pen tester or maintain being a pen tester. Also, if you get it, your certified ethical hacker written one gets renewed automatically for another 3 years past its expiration date. So you essentially made that cert last 6 years instead of 3 years. Which is another good thing to mention. All these certs, except the junior pen tester and the offensive security, the OSCP have a shelf life of 3 years, meaning you have to keep up with CEUs, which those of you going to college, you get those automatically, so you can turn those in if you have these certs. You can just get new certs and renew them. I got offensive security certified professional, and that holds weight to CISSP, that does CEUs for CISSP. When I got Pen Test Plus, it renewed a bunch of other certs. So the best thing to do too is just get another cert every few years, if you can. And eventually you'll get to a point where these certs will expire and it's not that big a deal because you've already become, someone in the industry who's recognized, and you don't have to have a cert to kind of like validate you, so to speak. So, if you have to do it for compliance reasons, your employer will do that. And if they don't, they should. And if they don't, and they should, and they still don't, well, that's your battle to fight. So, and then Pen Test Plus is a cheap exam, but the cost does not relate to the material. The material is it's very well put together. The exam is really good. I highly recommend it. Can you skip directly to CEH theory? You mean practical? Yeah, you can. A lot of people do that. And then the offensive security certified professional, the OSCP, is the big one. That's like the CISSP for pen testing. It's a really tough exam. Even prepping up for it takes, for most people, it takes them anywhere from 6 months to a year. I've seen even more. The really hard chargers, I've seen people get it done in 3 months. And there's a couple mythical stories out there of people getting it done in a month. But typically, once you start training for it, it takes about 3 to 6 months or a year, just because of how difficult it is. And then GVR, without taking Security Plus, I'm planning to take CH directly. Oh, yeah, then absolutely. And CH holds a lot of the stuff in Security Plus is in CEH. Different companies, but a lot of the material is the same. So those are some certs that are good to get. The OSCP is in gold because it's known as the gold standard of pen testing certs. It's a really good one to get. If any of you have any questions on any of these certs, I put these on here because these are the ones that from that list that I have and have experienced directly that I thought were good to pick out of there. And then this is the last slide before we actually start doing some hands-on stuff. So this is the typical step of how we do pen testing, and make sure that while we're doing all of our stuff, we're not going to do any report writing in this class because that's something that you'll develop as time goes on. However, if you want to know more about report writing, please do go grab some pen test reports. They're on GitHub, they're on the internet. You can grab them and kind of get a feel for how they're put together, and then apply your own writing style of that. And your writing style is also going to evolve while you do that. So we're not worried about report. We're worried about planning and preparation, right? How are we planning to do this? Well, how do we do it with this workshop? We get our environment set up. We're going to do recon. We're going to do that during the hands-on stuff. We're going to do discovery, enumeration, things like that. We're going to analyze the information that we find and associate the risks associated with all that information, right? We're going to look and say, okay, what's the risk and the impact with this, right? And then we're going to take what we found, analyzing it, and then we're going to attack it. We're going to see if we can actually exploit it, right? And the metasploitable image is, by default, it is vulnerable. So it's there for us to exploit. So we're going to have a lot of fun. And then once everything's done, we do a final analysis. In a pen testing environment, we we take, you know, everything that we found and we actually analyze it, and we base everything that we found and we base it on the impact that it has to the business, right? We take the risks, the information we found, and we associate it with the business. And then once we've associated with the business, we start seeing the impact that it has on the business, on various parts of the business, right? Whether it be on the people, the infrastructure, operations, things like that, right? So each step does need to be executed correctly and efficiently. And what I mean by that is if you miss one step and you do it wrong or you don't do it as well, it screws up everything, and then you have to go back to the beginning. And one of the biggest things you'll hear is that enumeration is key, that if you can't figure something out when you're pen testing, whether it's on an exam or for a lab or even in the real world, you got to enumerate everything. You got to enumerate all the information from the target. And what that means by is gathering as much information as you can, whether it be service versions, application versions, backend server versions. What kind of language is the server using? Is it using PHP? Is it outdated PHP? Is it using HTML? What type of, is it using Java, or is it using Ruby on Rails, or is it using Django, or things like that, right? It's knowing a lot of different things, and so you kind of, as a pen tester, you're going to learn every day. So, and that's one big thing too. Before we continue, is that if pen testing is something you're interested in, it means you also, and for those of you that are programmers, you know this, you have to be committed to lifelong learning. It's not a what's or buts about it. You have to be committed to lifetime learning. One of my managers at my job, he just got OSCP, and he's been doing this for like 15 years. And at a point like that in someone's career, they would typically say, "Okay, I've gotten all my educational, my training goals out of the way. Now I can, keep going." Nope. He's at the point where he could do that, but he has to keep going, and that's how it is. That's just how it is in this field, because you have to continuously learn as technology evolves. So now it's time for the fun stuff, right? Now it's time to get our hands dirty. It's time to start digging around, seeing what we can find, right? So, before we begin, we'll take a quick break. This is what I recommend you do. We'll take a 8-minute break, or a 7-minute break as of now. So we'll come back at 5:05. So make sure that you get your lab set up really quick. So spin up your Linux image, spin up your Metasploitable image, and then go grab, some caffeine or whatever you need to do, right? And it says make sure you have a NAT network for your machines to live on. And I will show you guys that right now. And then we'll take a break really quick to get some go-go juice. Are we going to? That's okay. Just everybody pay attention. We're gonna do it. Give me a second. Bring up my environment really quick. Okay. So I haven't started my machines yet. So you should be able to, oops, sorry. I don't think I did it. Just a second. There we go. All right. Can you see? That's actually not going to work. Hold on. Oh, difficulties. Hold on, guys. Okay. Okay, so now you should be able to see the screen, right? I want to make sure that you guys can see it, otherwise I don't know. Yes. You see it? Okay. So I have these two machines down here. I have the main Kali and the Metasploitable. Right click on it. Bring up the options. Or actually, scrap that. We're going to start from new. So we're going to go here. We're going to go up to the top. Go to File, right? Not here. File, Preferences. You're going to see a tab over here. It says Network. I have a bunch of different NAT networks in here. So what a NAT network is where we're basically creating our own virtual network. So what you're going to do, you're going to click Add New NAT Network. Now we have a new one. You're going to edit it. So we added, Now we go to the network, we right click on it, we go to edit the NAT network, and we're going to name it, so we'll call it workshop, or I'll call it workshop, call it whatever you want. And then you create a CEDAR notation with an IP address scheme. You can just use the default one. That's what I do. And you click OK. And now we have this network here. All right, we're not done. Everybody, hopefully everybody's keeping up. If not, just feel free to ask questions. So you're going to right click on each one of these images, and I'm only going to do it with one. But you right click on your image, you go to settings. Again, right click on the image, go to settings, go to network. You're going to have a bunch of options here. You're going to see NAT, bridge, all this good stuff, right? Go to NAT network. And then assign it to your workshop network. Josh asked if you need to kill the Kali machines, so you'll need to, it's best just to reboot them, to reboot everything if it's spun up already. So yeah, give it a good reboot. All right. Should just be able to start these guys up.
My network is grayed out when I go to the settings, and I'm not sure why.
Grayed out.
Yeah. Because I made the network. Yep, that's correct.
Wait, so when you go here in the settings, right?
Yep.
Is it because the adapter's not enabled?
I mean, it's clicked, it says enable network adapter, but it shows NAT network, but no name. It won't let me click on the drop box below.
Can you do it with your Metasploitable machine? Try it with the other machine just to see.
No.
It won't let you do it?
Mm-mm.
Really? And you created the NAT network?
Mm-hmm.
You went. Maybe try creating another one. And wait, are your machines up?
They were, then I took them down. They're in a saved state right now, though. So should I close them completely?
Yeah, try closing them completely.
Okay.
Cassandra asks, how does this work in VMware Fusion?
Oh no, they are closed.
I use VMware Fusion. That's on my Mac machine. Wish I had that on me. There should just be an option to where you can do a NAT.
So just double checking. So you go preferences, right? And then go to network and then create a new NAT network and then just OK. And then it should show up, right?
Correct. So yeah, you go here, preferences, you create your network, right? And you create a new NAT network, right? And then it populates and you edit it. And that's it.
I realized what I did wrong. So when I went to settings and I went to network, the first drop down is attached to NAT. You want to change that to NAT network, and then you can change the thing. So I got it.
Okay, and then Cassandra, I'm putting something in here so you can do that. Did you show the new Min? Do you need a second look? I do have to make a quick head call before we keep going, so. No. Okay. I'm gonna go make a head call really quick. I'll be right back, and then we'll get going.
Hey David, is there a way to double check just to make sure that my image is connected? Because I had it as a save state before closing it, so I don't know if do I have to actually like reboot it probably or no?
I'd say just reboot it so it's work perfectly most of the time.
That's what I will do. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome. Aaron, are you up to speed now?
I can show him real quick. If you need to go, Kim. Share. Can I share my screen? Let's see. All right, virtual box. No, wait, where am I? Aaron, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Cool. All right. So you got your 2 boxes, right? So you go up here first to File, and you click Preferences. Let me know when you're there.
Yeah, work.
I think for Aaron, are you up to speed? Are you here at this step, or?
Aaron, are you using VirtualBox or a different thing?
Sorry if this is very echoey, but no, I'm using VMware.
Ah, I don't know VMware.
I put a thing in the chat. For VMware.
Yeah, check the link in the chat that Professor John put there. Sorry, Aaron.
That's why we said. Other key point of being a good pen tester, you have to follow instructions. Just kidding. Okay. Okay.
Should we check the IPv6 or other setting of the new network?
No, do not do IPv6. Do it exactly how I showed you. Yeah, we don't need to be doing no IPv6. And then another good question that was asked is, in a real pen test, what's the operating system to use, and is it a virtual machine? Some people don't use a virtual machine. Those who don't use a virtual machine typically have either Parrot Security or Kali Linux has the main distro. You'll see Ubuntu as well, but Kali Linux and Parrot Security have all the tools that you need already installed, as opposed to Ubuntu. You kind of like get your own images as you go. Now, for me, for myself, my main machine, I use a MacBook Pro. I like the hardware and the way and I'm a Unix guy. So I use that, and then I have VMware Fusion on there, and I have a Windows image. So in case I need to do any kind of like fundamental Windows hacking, that's just easier to do with command line and interacting with other Windows machines. I just use a Windows VM to interact with that, and then also I have a Kali Linux image that I use. And then what about connect host Mac to this network? Leave that unchecked, or just leave that unchecked. You're good. You just because it's going to associate an IP address with it. And then I got so many windows open now. All right.
Are we keeping while adding both the NAT network for both Kali and Meta?
Yes, those go for both because that network is a fake network. Essentially, it's a virtual network, guys, that you're making. So, okay, you all ready to get your hands dirty or what?
Yay.
All right. Okay. Let me re-share my screen. So we're going to be doing a lot of jumping back and forth from screens because I have to do a bunch of screen sharing. So we're going to be all over the place. All right. So if you're having issues with VMware, I'm sorry, but your resources are limited because the course is built around VirtualBox. However, VMware and VirtualBox, you know, same thing, different flavor. However, for NAT networking, we have the resource in the chat, but I don't want to spend all day troubleshooting VMware or VirtualBox because we still gotta do hands-on stuff, right? So let's go ahead and start doing this. And for what we're actually about to do, for one of the things that we're going to do, we don't even have to have Kali Linux. You can actually have Google. You just need Google. That's it. So, I'll try to get it to go to the next slide. Nessus. No. Nessus. We won't be doing any Nessus stuff. We're talking about open source intelligence gathering. So, what is that? It is a great way to automate basic network discovery, right? It's now open source intelligence gathering is where you do passive pen testing. Passive pen testing is where you're not actively attacking anything. You're gathering information on the web that's available on the web for anyone, right? And it's and you might ask, well, why would we have that information on there? Well, because it's information that's good for people to find out where you're at or what you're affiliated with, right? Because we all want to make sure that we're known on the internet. However, sometimes it has consequences, right? And sometimes there's information that might be out there that you don't want to be out there. There might be a misconfiguration on something that leaked out information about you, and you don't even know it. Open source intelligence gathering is the way how we discover stuff. So, and it says often used as an initial attack vector. Is that what is known as Google Dorks? Yes, Thomas. Google Dorks is that's using Google's search engine. You know, everybody goes to Google and you hear the word Google it, right? Well, now you're going to have a little bit different perspective on Google it. With open source intelligence gathering, we also use that as an initial attack vector. What does that mean? It's the initial, it's one of the ways how we get stuff, right? We get stuff to create a way of how we can attack someone, right? You find out someone's name and you find out where they're at. A lot of times, you know, you can use that with a phishing campaign, right? You find their email. You say, okay, I know the person's email. And I see that, you know, it's first name, last name at domain.com. Well, that means that they got a bunch of other people there. Here's a couple tools that we're going to be using. We're going to be using the Harvester. The Harvester is a really nice tool that we can use to automate and gather information from LinkedIn, Facebook, from lots of other things, right? And it's a good way to pull emails, information about people, things like that. Google Dorking. Google Dorking is where we use a search engine to find just stuff about anyone. There's a big list of syntax that you can use to do Google Dorks and execute it efficiently and effectively. We're not going to go over like the list. I just have a commit because we are limited on time, and this is more of like a demonstration to show you. We're going to do maybe one or two different queries, and then we're going to move on. And then the other one, this is a tool that a lot of people don't talk about. I'm big into AWS research and into AWS hacking. Because it's a cloud provider that takes over 60% of the cloud domain, meaning those companies that own cloud or have the cloud infrastructure, 60% of them, if not more, do it with AWS. Gray Hat Warfare is a web application or web application tool, web app tool, whatever you want to call it, that allows you to find public buckets on the web associated with domain names. So pretty cool tool. We're just going to look at the free version. You can buy the real version. I think it's like $200. You have to buy a subscription. I think it's like $200 for the year. But it's really good for security research and finding. For those of you that don't know, S3 buckets are basically file storage systems in the cloud. So let's go. So the Harvester, right? The objective of this program is to gather emails, subdomains, hosts, employee names, open ports, banners, all sorts of stuff, right? Gathers pretty good protocol or pretty good privacy keys. and also goes through the Shodan computer database. Shodan is a big open source tool that we use to find various kinds of things, right? If you're interested, I would highly recommend going to, I'll put it in the chat, shodan.io. You can find a lot of interesting stuff, a lot of webcams on there. So, let me now, oops, sorry. So, feels pretty. All right, so now we're going to be switching over. This is hands-on time, right? So now you should be able to see the screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is Kali Linux, right? This is our Kali Linux terminal. And I believe I already created a workshop directory. Yep, so we got some cool stuff in here already. All right, so we're going to be using a tool called the harvester. You can type in the word "the" and then capital H and then hit tab, and it should automatically do the rest for you. So take a second, spin up your Kali Linux image, and type in that word. Just type in "the" capital H, hit tab, and then press enter.
John, can you zoom in a little bit because it's a little bit small?
Yes, I got you. Where is it? There. Is that good?
Yeah, it's all good. Thank you.
Yep. So, this is the harvester. This is a fun tool to play around with. Perfectly legal to use in any sense. I know people that use sales engineers that use this to find people to contact. So we're not being intrusive with this at all, right? So we're going to actually target a organization that we're all near and dear with. And target sounds like a harsh word. It just means that we're going to scan a domain that we know. So if you look, you got all these switches up here, right? These switches are what tell you, okay, you use this switch and then use whatever parameter you want to put in. And a parameter is just a variable that you put in. So we need to pick a domain to target. So we're going to use edu.edu, right? And now it says limit. We want to set a limit on how much stuff we can query, right? Do we want to have a list of 500 results, a list of 1,000, like a list of 2,000, so on and so forth, right? However, when you do stuff like that, you need to make sure that you take into account that the longer the list, the longer it's going to take, right? Because we're going to have to be going, it's going to be going on the internet and everything and doing that for you. So we're going to do L. And let's do 500. For those of you watching and doing this, feel free to set it to less or more. And then we have to give it a source, right? Where are we pulling this information from? Are we pulling it from LinkedIn? Are we pulling it from Facebook? Are we pulling it from Shodan? Where are we going with all this, right? I like to just do all, because then it pulls it from everywhere. And then you hit enter. And then it's going to go through. It's going to try to find some stuff. And we give it a minute. And typically on a pen test, if something like this is going on, if you have a tool doing automated things for you, you typically go and you do something else towards that target. So we would go and we would do, we'd start doing open source intelligence gathering on something else, right? Interestingly enough, did I type something wrong? No, I did it right. It says it didn't find anything. One more thing.
I got a bunch of stuff coming back.
You got stuff?
Yeah, I only did a limit of 50 though.
Oh, you did I'm gonna just try LinkedIn.
Me too. I did 50 as well. And
You did 50?
Yeah, I did 50 as well.
I typed it to 500 like you did, and I got 24 results.
Okay. Huh, maybe it doesn't like me today. Do I have internet? Wait. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, here you guys go. You see all this, right? And you guys are all seeing the stuff that you're getting, right?
Yes.
Look at all that stuff.
So far, I'm just on LinkedIn.
Right? So, as a pen tester, we could say, okay, we could go to any of these individuals, right? So, I'm gonna pick a random one. Let's see. Let's pick. We have Associate Professor Zheng Tao. So basically, this tool finds the amount of people we specify in the limit. Question: how does it choose which one to grab? It's random. It just based it on the limit that you set. So it'll keep reiterating, right? Think of it as like a loop. It keeps reiterating and going through and going through. But if you were to, you could like search the. I'm not gonna pull it up on LinkedIn or anything, but you could like search these people individually, and then you could go forward and try to find more information about them, right? Like the what would be something interesting? Like, oh, we have someone here that works with the bank, JP Morgan, who's an associate. They're an associate. So that means that they're, if they're an associate, they're not high up. So maybe we could talk to them to try to figure out more information about someone that is higher up. Or, let's see. Here's a student. We got Bridget. And then something. Trying to see if I'm.
There's a CEO there, supposedly.
Our CEO. Yeah. Okay. Good catch. Right. We have a CEO. Then we can just start searching about this person, right? Because now we know they're affiliated with City University of Seattle, and you can use that towards your goal. Like especially if you're assigned to do like a phishing campaign, that's where you send false emails, and you could say, hey, like we here at City U are sending out emails to the alumni for this special alumni, dinner, and it's a virtual dinner, and you could send it to these people, or to that person, the CEO specifically, and and ask them to log in to like a portal or something like that, and grab their credentials, things like that, right? Again, you're only using that for non-malicious purposes, right? Why did my command only give me the email addresses of the users? You might just need to run the command again. Sometimes you have to run the command more than once. When I do this, I usually do 1,000, and it gives you a big list. But I don't want to, again, time is limited, so we're not going to worry about doing all of that today. But this is one tool that you can use, and especially for those of you here that have been in my classes and doing like risk assessments and everything. This is really a tool to just map out users. So let's go back to the next slide. Let me see if I can find it. All right. Here we go. All right, so we gathered some cool stuff, right? We looked and we found some emails and some things like that. Kim says, in my results, I got lots of info from myself, right? Yeah. So I know I've seen a couple of you guys, at least the ones that are part of the university here. I've seen students in inquiries before. So spooky tools. All right. So the next one. Google Dorks, right? Google hacking, which is also known as Google dorking, right, is an attacker technique that uses the Google search engine and other Google applications to find security holes and configurations of computer code that websites use. So basically, what that says is it says like if you store a XML file, or I'm sorry, not an XML file. If you store a Excel file with important information on it, I don't know, like pay dates and things like that, you can find it on the internet, right? And you can find it just by doing Google Dork. we're going to do one command, again, because time is limited. But I would tell you guys, like, hey, make sure that you go and you play around with it, because there's a lot of different Google dorking techniques that you can use. Fools everyone who's associated are part of CityU. Yep. So let's go back. Man, jumping back and forth. Let me just use this. Oh, maybe I'll just do that. I feel like it's a lot easier instead of going back and forth between terminal and window. I just have to find the Cali machine now. Okay. All right. So now we're back. So now we need to open up a web browser. So take a moment to pull up your web browser in your Kali image. You don't even have to use Kali. You can use any browser and just use it. And then we're going to go to Google. And then we're going to search things that might have the word admin in them. Now, I already did this. I did a little bit of this before the workshop, just to make sure like we wouldn't find anything bad that we would need to report to the university. So nothing was there. So what we're going to do is we need to have a link to associate. So the command for that is link, and I already actually have the command in here. So again, we'll break this command down. I know I hit it already, but so when you're Google Dorks has keywords that it uses to reference something, right? So if we break this down, we said link, which is the linking to this domain, which is cityu.edu. That's the domain, right? And then we said file type. We said PDF, right? We want to see if we have any PDFs out there that have the word admin in them, or if it comes up in the URL. You can also do in text, where you say admin, right? Zoom in, please. Is that good? I feel like 170 is good, right? Okay. So you can see, and I'll put the command, at least this command in here. Feel free to pop that in.
Is there spaces between those?
Yes. And then you're gonna, or I'm sorry, no, not spaces in between things. So if we don't do spaces, I'm sorry, you don't do spaces with those, but so if we do, let me do a different command really quick. So if we do admin, and then let's say we do file type, we'll do txt, right? Nothing. What if we just try to see if we can find some random PDFs? Maybe I typed it in wrong. I'm not a huge Google worker. Okay, maybe we might, hold on. The demo gods are not being nice. If we look up Google Dork, we're just gonna look it. So we can go here, you can go to exploit DB, right? And you can go here and you can look at different queries that you can use, right? And there's even cheat sheets. We can go and we can do cheat sheets. Of course, we got to do the CAPTCHA. All right.
I like to call it training future cars.
Training future cars is nice. So we're not going to worry too much about it, but here's one from Sans. Like Sans, but these are just some of like the parameters that you can use, right? Here's some of the keywords. They have examples, right? You have site, searches only one website. So you would search like edu, right? We were trying to find anything that had pages linked to CityU. And it even gives you some nice little examples here, right? So there's a lot of cool stuff here. Yes, it is the Google search engine, so it may be a little finicky here and there. But essentially, this is what you can do, right? And print this off, play around with it. Again, this stuff is totally legal. If you find something associated with someone, report it. Like 100% report it. That's on you. Do report it, because one, you're helping them out, and two, you get known, right? So it's a win-win for everybody. They may even ask you to come in and actually like do some other assessments for them, which turns into, you know, a business partnership, which is awesome. So always cool stuff. So let's move to another one, and then we're actually gonna pivot away from the open source stuff. Let me bring the PowerPoint. So okay. So Gray Hat Warfare. All right. So this is a fun little tool. It's new-ish, and it's for scanning and looking for S3 buckets, open S3 buckets, right? So an open S3 bucket is, think of it as a file system or a file repo in the cloud. It belongs to AWS. It's out there in the cloud, and you can access it via a URL, right? So that's bad if it's publicly accessible, right? And that happens. It shouldn't be publicly accessible. It should only be accessible to those who need to access it. However, system administrators, because it's easier just to make it public, that's what happens. So we're actually going to look and see if we can find any open buckets. Again, I did this already just to make sure we didn't find there wasn't anything like impactful or detrimental, but it's still a good fun tool to use. So we'll go back to our Kali image. We will type in. Gray Hat. So type in Gray Hat Warfare, and then it should link you to grayhatwarfare.com. So I'll give you guys a second to bring that up. If you need the link, I will put drop that down here for you. All right. Yes, we will have the recordings afterwards. All right. So we want to search up keywords, right? We have those right here. Before we search keywords, know that a keyword should be typically something like a domain, right? We want to look up something like because we're going to use this to scan a target, right? So if I put in a domain such as cityu.edu, should just be able to hit search, right? And we can include or exclude different file types. We're not going to worry about that right now. We just click search. And I have a paid license version of this where you can do a lot more different stuff and actually use this for pen testing. I use this a lot. So I typed in cityu.edu, and we can see that we have this bucket that is associated with AppJolt, right? Because you have this this domain path right here, right? And here's the file name. So if we were to click on this, it should take us to the full URL. And now we have this guy, right? So this looks like it's CityU Hong Kong. And we pull up this one. It looks like another CityU Hong Kong one. And this is another CityU Hong Kong. So it's just images, right? Nothing bad, which is good. It's always good. Believe it or not, when you're pen testing and you're not able to exploit anything, it's a very give and take kind of emotion with you because you feel like you didn't do your job, but it's a good thing. It actually means that the other company is doing their job and they're actually securing their company. So that's another good thing to use when you're trying to attack a system, or I'm sorry, when you're trying to gather information to attack a system, because a lot of times buckets, you can search them. If you find them, they'll have if they're public, they'll have information that may have like credentials. It may have important information such as PII, which is personal identifiable information, and anything in there between. You can really use your imagination on it, because chances are, wherever your imagination goes, there's something out there that is like that. We have a digital hand raised for Josh. Go ahead.
Do you ever have times, John, when you're doing pen testing or have done in the past, where you just, because you couldn't find as much stuff, the company tried to call out your credibility instead of them actually doing their job? But I guess maybe that wouldn't make sense, because I guess they would probably want to take credit for that, wouldn't they?
You kind of, I like that. He answered his question while he was asking. But to an extent, I've never had to validate my credentials post pen test. I actually have to validate my credentials before doing a pen test, believe it or not. And you'll experience that for those of you that get into the field, where you have to, when you're talking with a client, you have to explain to them about like how things work and how you're going to do things, and this is why you do things and what's going to happen from the outcome of doing these things. And you have to, kind of give a 30-second elevator pitch, so to speak, of why you're qualified to do this, right? So that's like going from anything from like, I tell people like, oh, I'm OSCP certified. I've been doing this I've been doing pen testing for about 5 years. I've been doing this for about 5 years, and I've also been doing, various things, and I also do extremes amount of research in this field, as well as like I'm a scholar in the field and everything. And when you say things like that, you can't just BS somebody like that, because that person that's paying you is going to turn around and look you up. 100%, they're going to look you up. And so again, to answer your question, yes, but it happens before the pen test, not after the pen test. Because after the pen test, they're like, oh, they didn't find anything. That's awesome. So, lessons from the real pen test world. So, that's all I have for open source intelligence gathering. There's a lot of different tools. Of course, we don't have enough time to go over all of them, but these were ones that I wanted to show you that it's common to use them. They're tools that I commonly use. I know I'm not the best Google dorker, but I do use it. And I use this a lot to get stuff from the cloud, and the harvester is always like one of my go-to things to do, and I'll run a huge scan from the harvester to gather a bunch of different stuff. So for those of you that get into like security consulting or even IT consulting, those are going to be some tools that you're going to experience a lot. So if you say you pen tested for 10 companies, they all did a good job, so you couldn't find any vulnerabilities when you move to a company 11, isn't it kind of hard for you? Because they could be like, well, we don't see any of your real work. Good question. And this is why we label out the manual assessments in our pen test reports. We give them proof that we did things. And we give them the low versions and the high versions. And what I mean by the high versions is we show the things that we really tried hard to exploit, that were very difficult. And again, but you also have to make sure that you highlight and illustrate that in an easy to understand manner. Is that when you show them the tech writing? Yes. The tech writing is part of the pen test report. Okay, so we got about 20 minutes left. With screenshots of commands and tools ran and info disclosure, all that good stuff. There's a saying that we have when pen testing, it's the more screenshots, the better. Screenshots, believe it or not, are very tedious to do, because you don't realize that you need to take them when you're doing everything. So, when in doubt, though, screenshot it out. So, that's all we're going to talk about with OSINT. So, now, we're going to move into more scanning and enumerating. And we're going to use two tools for that, right? So, scanning provides details of targets during your engagement. So if somebody gives you a target, they give you an operating system or a couple computers, you're going to scan those to find services, right? Services are versions of the applications that are running on that machine, right? It's going to show you ports. Ports are the number associated with that open on the service that allows you to connect to that service, right? So Enumeration entails gathering information about targets such as ports, services, versions, all the good stuff, right? One of the big things is that we have to know is the versions and those services, because certain services may be outdated and they may have versions that are vulnerable. So it's a big thing to know. Enumeration is one of the most important aspects of penetration testing, 100%. And I mentioned that before. You'll hear sayings where it says enumerate, enumerate. So we're going to be focusing on system scanning. There's other different ones, such as like web app scanning, application scanning, things like that. So we're going to be going over Nmap and Sparta. These are the two tools that are commonly used to scan machines. So Nmap, free tool, comes built in with Kali Linux. So does Sparta, right? But it's really it's a great tool to use. I've even used it to do things as simple as ping. If I need to do a scan on a machine or to see if it's up, it has a no ping option to where I quietly get to figure out if the machine is up. So it's just used to discover hosts, and we're going to see that here in a second. And we use it to get ports and services and everything, right? And Sparta does the same thing. It's just like Nmap with a GUI on steroids. So now we're going to scan we're going to scan our Metasploitable machine, right? And I'm going to show you two ways of how we can do that, or at least in how we can figure out what our machine is, or where it is, right? Because it should be on your NAT network. So let's go ahead. We'll bring up Kali again. I'm going to go ahead and close this out. So this is the first way how you can do it, and this is the more practical way because you're not going to be. The other way is being locally on our vulnerable machine. And while in a research in a controlled environment that makes sense, but in a real life environment you're not always going to have access to it, right? And you're not going to know the IP or the host name of the machine. So the easiest way how we do it, and this is how I do it. Some people do it differently. We're going to use the command ifconfig, right? That's going to let us know the IP address of our machine. And we see that it is 10.0.2.4. Okay, so now we know that we're living on that network. But can everyone see the text okay? Or does it need to be a little larger? This is from the last time from the harvester, so I hope it's good.
It's
not, let me know. So now we need to check on this entire subnet, or this entire network, right, of 10.0.2. We're going to use this switch. It has switches just like the harvester. You're going to go TAC, right? I call that a TAC. S as in Sierra, N as in November. And what that does is it's a no DNS scan, so it's just going to see what's up. Ifconfig is not working. You might have to do sudo ifconfig like this. Also might have to do IP adder. So IP adder. I have my box running as root. So. Again, Nmap. And we're going to put a star right there because that's going to search all 200. And oops, I'll try. Oh, the new Kali box doesn't give you root privileges. That's right. You have to do that there. Put the command in there. It might be different for your machine if you have a different network. So we're going to do that really quick. Should populate the machine. And as you can see, you have Oracle VirtualBox. You have this network interface card that associates with this one, and then you have one that associates with this one. So we can assume, based on our situation, that 10.0.2.5 is our target machine. Now, because we're in a controlled environment, we have access to the machine. I'm going to bring this guy up really quick. So how we want to verify that? We're going to log into the machine, the password and username, msfadmin, right? And then we go into here, like this config, and it is in fact 2.0.2.5. There we go. We've confirmed that. So now let's scan it. So we're not going to do any like crazy kind of command or anything. We're just going to do a basic scan. Where we're going to want to find the versions, right? Because we're looking for versions of any kind of services. And then we'll just run it on that machine. So again, the command is nmap s, and then your IP. Yeah, and if you can't leave Metasploit, I forgot, if you are in there, sometimes it gets kind of wiggly. And then we're going to do this scan really quick, and then I'm going to show you guys a cool trick that I've learned. I learned this a while ago, and it really helps out. But right now, we're going to scan the machine, and look at all this stuff we got open. We got a lot of stuff, right? And again, hopefully you have some IT fundamentals so you understand like what these ports are and everything. If you don't, again, please feel free to catch up after the workshop. So as you can see, we have a lot of different services here, right? Where it says version and service, that's where as a pen tester you really want to focus your attention onto. The ports are just how you're going to access them. The ports are important, but it's just to access them. This is where your research is going to go in looking at the version and the service. So, all 1,000 ports, you might want to retry it, and just try again. If you need to, if everything is saying it's closed, you can do a no ping scan where it doesn't detect you. You do that command along with the IP, and it doesn't ping the host, but it shouldn't do that. I mean, we're in a controlled environment. So we're going to do one more thing. So now we're going to do the same scan, and you can actually just hit up to do that. Well, no, it doesn't want me to do it. Now you're going to, after the IP, you're going to hit TAC again, and we're going to do OX. What that's going to do is it's going to output this scan into an XML file. And there's a reason why we're going to use an XML file. We'll just call it workshop. So now while that's running, we're going to start up Sparta. You just open up the command line, or open up the window, so to speak, and then we go to Sparta. Good question, Kim. We're about to answer that. So in Sparta, again, our other scans finished up, and I'm going to show you guys why we did the XML file. So with Sparta is a great tool. I mean, you're going to see it more for a little bit right now, and then we're going to look at it more tomorrow. Go ahead and we target the host. We add that to scope. So what this is going to do is it's going to run a bunch of different scans on our target. It's going to automate a lot of cool stuff and good stuff for us, so that we don't have to worry about all that. So then, see how it's starting to already pop up stuff and do a bunch of other things? If you don't have Sparta, okay, you don't have Sparta. It looks like more people aren't having Sparta. Okay, then we're not going to worry about Sparta, because it's just a fun tool to use, but we don't need to worry. So, and we can do Nicto. We're going to do Nicto more tomorrow. It's so pretty. If we have more time to look at it, install Sparta on your systems later today or tomorrow, and we'll look at Sparta again tomorrow. That sounds fair. And Nikto we'll look at tomorrow. So this is basics of scanning, right? It's called Legion now. Go figure. Ugh. This is an older image, so I apologize for not getting a new one. This is just the image that I use. And for those of you curious about it, it's the 2019.4 one. So it was the last iteration of last year's. So, okay. We got bringing up the PowerPoint again. So, let's attack some services really quick, right? We got about 10 minutes left. So, attacking services, right? This is the fun stuff, right? We did our in-map scan. We did some cool stuff. We looked at things, right? We've gathered information. Now let's say, okay, cool. Now we get to attack stuff, right? In a pen testing environment, it's not going to be this simple. You're gonna be reading a lot more about stuff. You're gonna have to be looking up things, right? This is just a general overview. So scale, when you go and do it in the real world, it's scaled out to where it's a lot more difficult. Things aren't going to be so open, things like that. This is just to learn the basic fundamentals. So this involves attacking services, various different ones. The ones that we're going to be focusing on are going to be SSH I'm sorry, not focusing on those. FTP and SSH, those are ones that typically run on those ports, right? Those are default ports associated with those services. So when you're doing a pen test, you can typically try to target those, right? So attacking FTP, right? It's a file transfer protocol. It's used to transfer files over and up about the wire, right? So we had it on our last scan. So this is what we need to think about when we're looking at FTP. Is it open? Is it anonymous? There's something called anonymous login, right? Is it running on a common port? If it's running on a common port, okay, we can think like, okay, they didn't take any extra security steps to put it on a different port, because you can put it on a different port. What service is running, right? What version of that service is running? Is there an exploitable or an exploit for that version? Are there tools to help automate this, right? Metasploit's a tool that we mentioned. We're not going to worry about Metasploit just yet. So what we can do is we will look at so we'll open up our window again. So we're going to do in-map, but we're just going to target that one port, right? Because we're targeting port 21. We use the TAC P option to do that. We want to know what service is running. We're going to run scripts on it. There's scripts built into the in-map command, into the in-map tool, so it's going to search different things for us. We're going to put in our target. So, for those of you watching, and in the chat for you. That and put your IP in there. All right. So it says that it has FTP running. And it has this version. And apparently it has anonymous FTP running on it. So what that means is that we should be able to use the FTP command and just try to log into it. It asks for our name. We put anonymous because anonymous login is allowed. And then we're going to put a password in, and you literally take all your hands and just mash it on the keyboard. And now it says that it is successful, and you should be able to run commands. Okay, cool. Now we're logged in. Doesn't look like we can find anything, so we'll exit out. All right, so nothing's there. So there's one vulnerability associated with this where you can actually, if I remember correctly, I'm double checking, you can actually get a backdoor onto it. And a backdoor is where you actually get a unauthorized connection onto the system. Now, we're running out of time, so we'll look at that and then we'll close up. So the tool that we're going to use for that, I'm trying to bring up my the PowerPoint again. We're going to be using Metasploit, right? Metasploit is a very popular tool used among security engineers and penetration testers. It automates everything, makes everything super easy in your life. All right. It has lots of exploits built into it. They're updated to the libraries constantly, and it's just an all-around good tool. So for those of you that decide to get into pen testing, you're going to become very familiar with this tool. So now let's actually attack it, and then that'll be it for the day. All right, so to start up Metasploit, we have to do something, right? We have to type in the word msfdb, and then you type in run. So what that's doing is it's saying start up the Metasploit database. So we start that up. Now, there is a vulnerability associated with this. And feel free to look up the version, or I'm sorry, the exploit to the version of this service. We're gonna use a quick tool to try there. In exploiting it, you have to try to connect to it, but you use this weird kind of command to where you try to log in.
What was that shortcut?
So basically, I'm sorry.
What was the shortcut key you did to make the extra terminal?
Control Shift Plus to make it bigger. Is that what you said?
No, you made an extra terminal window. I saw you have another tab.
Yeah. We're gonna do something here really quick. So now I'm getting all over the place. Control Shift T. Oh, to open up an extra window. Yeah. Sorry. So there's. I got a duck. You got a duck? Oh yeah, and it's always gonna give you a different background. So we can use a command called telnet, right? Telnet is a way how we can connect into things. It's our target, right? And then we need to specify the port that we're going to connect on. So we're connecting on port 21. So now it says that we're connected, but we're not authenticated to it. There's a difference between being connected to something and actually being authenticated to it and authorized to do stuff, right? So what we have to do is when you're doing this, you have to authenticate using a username and a password. And there's keywords that you have to use. You have to use the word user for username, and I believe it's pass for password. We're going to do user. Now in this service, this version of the service, there's a vulnerability where you can just type in backdoored, and you put a smiley face. The smiley face, I can't remember why, but it opens up this back door. And then we put password, we put pass, and you literally can put in anything. It doesn't matter. And then it's going to close your connection and not worry about it. Now, what you've done is you've opened up a back door in the background. This is where it gets fun. So now we've opened up a back door on the system. So go back to your Metasploit machine, and you're going. Let me double check. I have we gotta search the version. So we're going to search. You're gonna type in the keyword search, and then it was the VSFTPD service, and it was this version. So we search that, and you're gonna get a couple options, right? The auxiliary is just to scan it. It's typically something to check something, and then we have some exploits here. Well, look at this. We have an exploit associated with this. It's a backdoor command execution. So it opens up a back door, right? It opens up a back door, and we get onto the system. So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna click this. Right click on. We're gonna check that in just a sec. So we're going to right click, or I'm sorry, you're going to highlight this. You have to highlight the full path. So where it says exploit /Unix /FTP / that, right? Everything that's highlighted. Right click on it, copy it. Then we're going to type in the word use because we're going to use this exploit. And now we have the exploit loaded. So now we're going to check our parameters. And this one's pretty simple. All we have to do is assign it a host, a target host. Our target host was is the Metasploitable machine. So we go set our host, right? Because that's the parameter that we're setting. We're going to set it to our target. And that's it, right? So now, this is where we actually break it. Well, not break it, but we exploit it. We click run. Port is already used by the blind listener, is already open. This should be all right. Shouldn't have done that. Let's try it again. The service port does not appear to be a shell. Okay, so it should have given us access, but since it didn't,
I think mine worked. It said found shell. Is that what we want?
We have found shell. So
Josh does.
we can telnet into that port. Huh. I guess it doesn't want to work. Interesting. And of course it broke now. Well, essentially, some of you may have gotten a shell. If you did get a shell, type in the word ID, and you should get something where it gives you like a root shell.
Yep, I got root.
Cool. Yeah, I did not. And if we wanted to validate that too, we can actually run nmap from in here. We could even do, it says that, because it opens up this port, right? It has a back door. So we should be able to type that in. It says it's open. Interesting. The moment we need everything to work, this is where the demo gods do not play in everyone's favor, folks. It's not always easy peasy. Yeah, because essentially you should get something where it says like, I took a screenshot of me doing it a while ago, where it should have where it says you have root, right? It should say UID, right? And then it assigns you the UID and the group ID of root, and then it should give you a shell. So Josh put it into the chat. So yeah, we can fire upload a PHP reverse shell. You can do that. That's more part of the web. We're going to do that tomorrow. So yeah, we're going to do a lot more shells tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be all about exploiting things and getting shells. That's what the whole 2 hours is going to be about. So sorry that this didn't work. This was supposed to be the last part. So hopefully some of you guys got it working. If you didn't, you can try to reboot everything, do it again. So we're about 5 minutes over, so I appreciate everybody sticking around. But yeah, that's pretty much it for today. Like I said, again, we're all going to be meeting again tomorrow in this same channel at 4 o'clock. We'll go from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. We won't take any breaks. If you need to take a coffee break or something in the middle of it, please feel free to do so. But we're just going to do 2 hours of hacking in the same environment that we have. So tomorrow, what we're going to do is I'm looking at the agenda that I created for tomorrow really quick. We're going to look at how we attack low-hanging fruit, right? Those are easily exploitable vulnerabilities on a target. And then we're going to move forward into looking at actually attacking web servers. We'll do that for a little bit. And then the last 30 minutes, 45 minutes or so, we're actually going to do a pen testing scenario and wrap up. So that's all I have for today. Thank you everyone for coming into the workshop today. Does anybody have any questions, comments, or anything, except for obviously the demo not working right now? For those of you that have given demos in front of a class, you know what it's, the demo gods don't always act nice. So I'll stick around for about 10 more minutes if anybody has any questions or anything. Since everybody's saying thank you, you're welcome. Here for you.
I saw Josh asked if they should save the state machine, or it doesn't matter, it can start fresh tomorrow.
No, we can start fresh tomorrow.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Top 5 books. What kind of books? There's a lot of different books out there, Josh. My top 5 favorite hacking books are The Art of Exploitation. There's one about bug bounty hunting that came out last year by No Starch Press that's really good. The penetration testing one by Georgia Weidman's really good. The I think it's like the Web Hackers Handbook, I think it's what it's called, really good. Out of scope, CEH prep suggestions without official courseware. The internet, Reddit. There's a lot of stuff on Reddit. I got all my stuff from Reddit. How do I scroll the window in Metasploitable 2 on VirtualBox? You just put your mouse over it and scroll it. So it doesn't scroll because you're in a terminal. So. Yeah. Any other questions or anything? Going once. Going twice. Yikes, yo. VM or cast? VM. VIM. Sorry, them. Them or cat? Well, those are 2 totally different things. Yeah, that question doesn't really, I don't understand that. What's the difference between using VirtualBox or VMware? Do you want to use something free or VMware you typically have to pay for? I use both. I have a license through my company for VMware, and I like it, but VirtualBox is pretty simple. It's simple and straight to the point. Ah, there it is. Vim, Nano, or Emacs. Yeah, I was gonna say cat. I like Vim. Vim and VI are my Emacs. I've used Emacs like once. And I was like, I don't want to use this. I know a lot of other people like to use it. And then Nano, I use Nano for Ubuntu, just because it's usually built into it and it's easier to do exploit dev and stuff in it. Gedit's fun. I really like Gedit. I use Gedit for everything in Kali. Gedit is actually my editor of choice if I have a window. I love Gedit. It's awesome. Yeah, just personal preference. Gedit's very colorful. Not as colorful as Sublime or anything, but it's a colorful way to do file editing. So thanks to Linux Plus, I'm able to understand. We're going to be doing a lot more stuff tomorrow too that involves Linux stuff. So that's why I said, you know, to do this, you need to have a basic understanding of IT fundamentals, which Linux is part of IT stuff. So yeah. All right, everyone. Well, I'm going to go ahead and head out and go get some dinner. Hopefully, everyone, you know, goes and has a good dinner, and have a good night, everyone. And again, if you have any questions or anything, save them for tomorrow because we're going to be meeting back at 4 o'clock tomorrow. So I will see you all then. Everyone have a fantastic night. Bye.